Okay, wonderful. Thank you all. Good morning. We're just so grateful to be gathering here to talk about opportunities for funding for our museums, our heritage, science and art sectors. We have with us today, first of all, I'm Allison Campbell, pronouns she, her. For anybody who I don't know, I'm the Heritage Outreach Manager at the Washington State Historical Society. And we're joined today by Michael and Miguel from ArtSwa, Shannon from the Department of Commerce. And I also want to take a moment to acknowledge Manny Qualling from Inspire Washington and Brad Richardson and other friends from the Washington Museum Association. These are organizations that did a lot of work on all of your behalf to make sure that this money was there and available to you. So we're just so grateful for all of their kind of boots on the ground on this. But this Working Washington 5 grant will open in August. The guidelines are available, and I'm sure you all have questions. So just a few housekeeping, please keep yourself on mute. If you have questions during the presentation, please drop them in the chat. I'm going to be kind of monitoring that chat, and if it feels like an appropriate moment to break in and ask that question in the middle of the presentation, I might do that. Otherwise, we'll kind of hold them and wait till the end. But I'll make sure that all of your questions either get answered during this session, or if it looks like we might run over, we'll be sure to follow up with an email to everybody to get those answers to you. I think with all of that, I'm just going to go ahead and turn it over to Michael.
Thank you, Allison. Good morning, everybody. I'm so glad you all could join us. I just wanted to do a quick thank you and shout out again to Allison for organizing this, Shannon and Miguel for joining the call. Really want to thank Commerce for all the work they've done, and also a special shout out to Manny and Inspire Washington, his team. Their work. You just can't put a number on the value of the work that they're doing out there. So thank you. I'll let Shannon take a moment to introduce herself as well, and then we will dig into this presentation. And Miguel, if you want to introduce yourself, you can take a moment to do that too. All right, good. Shannon?
Hi, good morning. I'm Shannon Halberstadt, and I'm the new Creative Economy Sector Lead with the Department of Commerce. And I'm really appreciative to Allison and to Manny for helping to create this opportunity to share information about our grant opportunities with you. So really nice to be here.
And I'm Miguel Guillen. I'm the Grants to Organizations Program Manager at the State Arts Commission. Happy to be here.
Great. Well, without further ado, I am going to share my screen so we can begin our presentation. Can everyone see okay?
Looks great.
Excellent. So the first thing I'm going to say about this presentation is that there's a version of it very similar to this that's available to anyone that's in the call right now, anybody in the general public, and we'll be touching on that later. So Working Washington Grants Round 5. As many of you know, this is the big grant that's opening on August 17th. It is the 5th round of these Working Washington grants that Commerce has put out. And one of the special things about it, as we're digging into here, is that there's special funds put aside specifically for the arts, heritage, and science sectors. So just a little bit of background, 70 million was allotted by the legislature, with portions of these available funds being set aside for specific sectors. 60% is going for arts, heritage, and the science sectors. This includes live entertainment venues. And the other 40% goes to most other sectors, including hospitality, fitness, and then personal services. And on the main site that we'll show you later after this presentation, you can see in the guidelines the list of ineligible businesses. So you can see a little bit more detail about who does and does not qualify for this grant. I'll pass it over to Shannon to talk a bit about eligibility.
Thanks. What we're looking for eligibility are active for-profit and nonprofit businesses or organizations. You must have a UBI unless you're a business that's registered with a tribe. In that case, you can have a tribal license or identification, and also an EIN number as well, if that applies to your business. You need to be physically located here in Washington State, and you need to have been in operation prior to January 1st, 2021. This is a little bit different than previous rounds that only allowed businesses that were open before 2020. So that's something to note. For finances, this grant is really just designed to help folks who have experienced financial hardship due to COVID-19. It's also for smaller businesses, so businesses and nonprofits that didn't report more than $5 million of income in 2019. And then we are also looking for businesses and orgs that have had at least $10,000 worth of revenue in 2019 and 20. And you need to generate at least 51% of your revenue here in Washington State as well. Another thing to think about too is that you need to have business costs and expenses that aren't government fees and taxes. So this is government money that can't then be paid for government fees. And you have to still be in business. You can't have closed, or you can't be planning to close in 2022. And you need to have followed all the COVID-19 safety requirements from the government. As far as the timeline, the portal page is now open at commercegrants.com. And there you can find eligibility, and then also a very extensive FAQ that will probably answer any of the questions that you have. On August 17th, our application will go live. And at that time too, we'll open up our support services in several different languages, as well as English, by phone, by email. And that's the first day that you're able to submit an application. We currently have an application deadline of August 31st at 5 p.m. We've heard from our community that that's a pretty short timeline, especially at the end of the summer. So we're currently working on expanding that, and more to come about that soon.
So I'm going to talk a bit about the UEI, which some of you may be familiar with. And if you're not, this is an important thing to pay attention to. So the UEI is Unique Entity Identifier. This replaces the DUNS number. If you're familiar with this, this is the number that you had with the federal government. If you had a DUNS number, you now have a UEI, and there are some great guidance online that we'll point you to after this presentation. The big thing to know about the UEI is that you need to have one in order to receive federal funds. And the funds behind Working Washington Grants Round 5 are federal funds. So you can apply for this grant, you can be approved for this grant, but you cannot receive the actual funds from this grant until you can provide a UEI. If you don't have one or need to find out what your UEI is that replaced your DUNS number, you head to sam.gov, and we'll show you a few more resources about that. And there's a great FAQ at commercegrants.com that compiles a lot of our best existing knowledge about the UEI, and we'll show you that after this slide presentation. So now we're going to take you to a few places on the internet and show you some of the things that we've been talking about. But these are some of the main websites to have on your radar. And they each have some useful things for you. So at commercegrants.com is where you'll be heading to link out to submit your application, as FAQs, the program guidelines, and then right when the portal is opening, all that language support that Shannon talked about will be live as well. On ArtsWA's website, that's where you'll head to sign up for email updates specifically about this grant. As soon as we get new information, we'll be pushing it out, and downloading the free partner toolkit, which I'll show you in just a little bit. And as we just discussed, sam.gov is where you're going to go to register for a UEI or find out the one you have if you already had a DUNS number. So now we're going to hop off. I'm going to pass it back to Shannon, and we are going to look at commercegrants.com.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. So this is your go-to spot for right now to be able to access the Department of Commerce's current grants that are open. So over the last 2 years, Washington State has done extensive work in COVID relief with more than $500 million in grants to address the issues that businesses have had due to COVID-19 and the economic outfall. Michael, if you could scroll down just a little bit. Here you'll find this important notice to grant applications, and then also in the tab above the UEI application information. That's where you can find more information about the UEI. Like Michael said, this is something that you should do now. If your business doesn't already have a UEI, apply for one now, so that you're all set and ready to go for the grant when the grant application opens. We can scoot back over there, Michael.
So the UEI FAQ.
No, back over to the main page.
Great.
So this is where you find information about the Working Washington Round 5 grant and information about the 60% identified for arts, heritage, and science sectors. And you guys, I just want to thank this group specifically because I know many of you did advocacy to make sure that that money is available for these sectors. And there's so much need. So I just want to express that appreciation. And also the general timeline. If we are able to extend that timeline, this is where you'll find it, and we'll also do messaging very, very broadly. If you could scroll down just a little bit more, Michael. I also wanted to point out that we will, during the same time period, have convention center grants open as well for the businesses that were affected by the closure of conventions. So think about like Penny Arcade, those kinds of conventions that are out there where many, many small businesses earn their income. And let's go ahead and click through that link, Michael. So this takes you over to our partners page at Submittable. And this is where you will find the current grant eligibility guidelines, and then also the frequently asked questions. When the grant opens on August 17th, this is also where the portal will be to apply. So this is where you can click through, look at the program eligibility and guidelines. So if you get questions from folks in your network asking, am I eligible? This is the first place to go. We won't have customer support available until August 17th. So right now is the time to really dive into those FAQs and the eligibility guidelines to look at, to just be prepared for the application opening.
Great. Thank you, Shannon. And I'm going to show you some of the resources we've built up at ArtsWA. So if you just go to arts.wa.gov, you'll see, and through the end of the grant cycle, we will have this as the top piece of information on our website. And if you click through to here to learn more, we have a summary of the information of the basic kind of nuts and bolts about this program, some of the same links out that you've seen, and a couple of places that I want to draw your attention to is this link here to get email updates. If you sign up here, you'll be added onto a list where whenever there is information to share out, you know, if the timeline is extended, when new resources become available, any kind of new information or update, we'll send that out as quick as we can to this list. So I encourage you to sign up here and encourage anybody you think might be interested in this grant to also sign up for those updates. The other thing I'm going to draw your attention to, you just scroll down to about halfway down the page, is the Outreach Toolkit. This has 5 components right now. And one thing I want to, that I've been telling anybody that I talk about this toolkit with, is that if you feel like there's something missing here, if there's a particular tool or a particular graphic inside the social media kit, anything like that, let me know. If there's something that would be useful for you, if you want to help get the word out, I want to help you do it. So just let me know. I'm going to take you through this real quick. If you click on this social media, you'll download a Word document. And this Word document has example posts about this grant. So it has general information posts, just to give people the basics. And these are directed towards all the different sectors. So there's an arts and heritage specific one, the other sectors, and then all sectors. And then we have a few specific posts about eligibility, about signing up for email updates, and getting that UEI taken care of. So these are all posts that you can drop right into social. We encourage you to change the language to match your organizational voice or individual voice if you want to do this outreach. We'll take a look at the e-blast real quick. This is like an example newsletter that you could put into MailChimp or whatever system you use to message out to folks. These are outreach tools, and we want to equip you if you want to get the word out. We're really excited for that because this is a really important opportunity. And this PowerPoint deck that you can download is pretty much the PowerPoint deck that we just showed you. It doesn't have some of the special language calling out the arts and heritage sector. That was some of the special florges we put just for you, but it has all the information about eligibility. It has the notes about the timeline. It has the information about the UEI. And as things get updated, this social media and all these toolkit pieces will get updated as well. This one pager and talking points, these are just resources to help understand the grant at a really basic level. So this is a one pager this is the talking points that lets you kind of describe and make the case for this grant to other folks. And then over here is a one pager that tries to capture the real nuts and bolts about this grant on a single page that can be emailed, can be printed out and shared, however it needs to be used. So this toolkit is free to use. And like I said, I'm happy to customize it and expand it. I really want this to be as useful as possible. And we're also looking into translating this. I'm already translating into Spanish and looking into translating it into Mandarin and Russian as well. We really want this to be as widely deployable as possible. And with that, we have reached the end of our formal presentation. And unless, Shannon, there's other things that you want to show the group, we can transition to Q&A.
Sounds good, Michael. Thank you.
Thank you both so much for that kind of big picture of the timelines and all of the work that you all have done to get this information packaged and ready for us all. I'll open it up to our group for questions. If you want to just raise your virtual hand, we have quite a few people on the screen, so I might not see your actual hand if you raise it. But if we don't, I can get us started with some questions if, if folks don't jump up with something specific. I know we're processing all of this information. So one question I had that we chatted a little bit before we got started, but maybe a question floating around amongst particularly our smaller heritage organizations or smaller organizations on the line is how to document that loss of activity. And you know, for a lot of these organizations that may not even charge admission at the door, right, or charge for programs, but they certainly had to cancel fundraisers during the pandemic, or they've had a loss in volunteerism, and so they can't open their doors as regularly, and so there's a loss of sort of donation at the door kind of thing. How, I know you require tax documents, sort of the 990, which will reflect some of that. You know, would a spreadsheet that shows kind of a loss of or a decline in volunteer hours support an application, or what kind of other documentation would you accept or be interested in looking at?
So this grant is designed for financial hardship. And so the information that we're looking at is financial reports. And so a 990 is very helpful. If you do have in-kind support that is reflected in your financial statements, you know, then that makes sense that you would include that as well. But it needs to be recorded and reflected in your financial statements too. So yes, we're looking for a 990, and we're looking for loss between 2019, 20, and 21. And so the way that the application actually works, there are fields where you put in the numbers and then also upload your financial documents as well as backup.
Okay, great. Anne just had a clarifying question, and then we'll head over to Carol. Michael, you had said that sort of if you have a DUNS number, you sort of have an automatically assigned UEI. Do you still need to go through that application process to get that UEI number?
It had been my understanding that if you had a DUNS number existing, you should be assigned a UEI. But Miguel, do you have more to share on that?
Yeah, no, you're not. It's easier for you to get one, but you do need to apply, and it's gotten a little difficult. The main problem folks are having, or the primary problem folks are having, is that you need to reflect exactly the way that you applied when the information you use to apply for your DUNS number needs to match exactly. And we do mean exactly. Periods, abbreviations, everything has to be exactly the same or it kicks you out. So it may take a couple of tries, and hopefully you'll have that information stored so you can just type it right in. And in that case, you do automatically get one. It just pops right up. But if there's any variance in the way that you enter your address, as opposed to the way you originally entered it, you'll start to experience problems, unfortunately.
Gotcha. Thanks for that clarification. And there's
Can I
nothing.
add something really quickly?
Please. Yeah,
I
please.
just wanted to also add that there are some sites out there that pose as sam.gov, and they charge money for a UEI. So if it costs anything, you're in the wrong place and you need to go over to sam.gov. So it's completely free of charge to get your UEI.
Thank you, Shannon. That's important information. And there's nothing stopping all of you from applying for this UEI now ahead of the application actually opening. You know, it might turn around quickly, but correct me if I'm wrong, even if you don't have that number assigned at the time of your application, it's okay. You just need to have that number before the money can be dispersed, right?
That's exactly right. We're asking folks to certify that they've at least applied for their UEI.
Perfect. Okay. Okay, great. Carol from DuPont had a question.
So my question is, we only file a 990E, which really doesn't say anything about our finances. So does that mean that we would have to go back in and or fill out a 990 form or something to send you, or?
No, you can submit a 990E, and we're actually completing the application today. So I'll have more specific information very soon. So if you sign up in that email list that Michael shared with you for updates, then yeah, we can share more specific information about the specific documents that you'll need to prepare.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, perfect.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Carol, for that question. Anyone else? I see a thumbs up to that. Any other questions right out the gate? Yes, Carol, go for it.
Oh, I'll ask another question. We previously filed for I think it was through the Commerce Grant, for a hardship where we received funds that, because we lost money in 2019, does that affect how we can file for this one? Or can we use the same information to file for this one? Or where do we stand on that?
So that's great. I'm really glad that you did file for that support, and previous support from federal, state, or private organizations doesn't affect this application at all.
Great. Thank you, Carol. Yeah, Greg from the Olympia Historical Society. Did you have a question, Greg? Oh, there we go.
Yes, I do. So I was just trying to get the unmute button going. So, hey, thank you, Allison, and thank you, Shannon, and the presenters. I've got a couple questions. I think you just maybe answered it, the first one, Shannon, but in terms of our revenue, I saw on one of the first slides that we need to demonstrate at least $10,000 in revenue, correct, over the time period. Was that what you're going to be looking for us to demonstrate, that we have that threshold?
Yes.
Okay. Let me ask you, would that include like grants that we have applied for and received during that time period as well, or how does that figure in, if at all?
Yes, it's all income. So anything that you would have filed in your 990 counts as income.
Okay. My second question then, Shannon, is that we've got some funding that we have received in the past as bequests that for specific tasks that we consider as be restricted funds in terms of our usage. So will those funds be looked at in terms of your review for evaluating our application?
We're not going that deeply into review. We're looking at bigger picture income and expense for the businesses and nonprofits who are applying. We're not looking at whether those are restricted or not.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay. Thank you very much, Shannon.
Great. Thank you, Greg. Shaco just dropped a question over to me. We talked about the 990E, and there was just an additional question about the 990N, which I'm sure you'll be kind of reviewing as you start looking at all of the documents that you all will accept. So unless Shaco wanted to unmute and ask something specific, I think we'll just look out for more information on that when you release that next round of kind of to the guidelines. Yeah. Anyone else? This is your chance. No, I'm sure that there will be more opportunities to attend workshops. I know ArtSwa is going to be hosting a lot of communication and conversations about this, and asks if you want all of the 990 pages to be uploaded to the application.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and honestly, for us, we're expecting many applications from around the state, so for the finances, we generally will do spot checks of finances. We don't check every single 990 that's submitted, but we keep those in case of audit because it is federal funds that we're distributing. So if they come back and audit us, then we need to make sure that we have that documentation.
Great, thanks, Shannon. And correct me if I'm wrong, this is a sort of, obviously you need to be eligible, your application needs to be complete, but it's not competitive in other sort of more traditional funding programs where there's like project narratives and things that you need to be including. But when the money's gone, right? So
correct.
It is to your advantage to kind of be ready to go and submit sooner to the release of the application rather than later. Don't know if I said that very clearly, but
yeah. And Allison, I wanted to also echo what you said about the good work that Michael's doing for outreach, and we are going to continue to have more presentations and webinars and resources for folks. Also, we are going to do trainings where we actually walk through the application once that's available. So it's a very simple application. We've worked as hard as we can to make sure that we're preventing any fraud, and that the folks who are applying are the folks that should be receiving the funds. But beyond that, making it as simple as possible, only getting the information that we need to be able to do our due diligence. So yeah, that
is music to everybody's ears, and we appreciate those efforts tremendously. A lot of these folks are volunteers, and so in those cases in particular, it's really helpful to have a streamlined process. So Michael has shared in the chat that there will be, again, some of those kind of additional sort of workshops. I do encourage you all to sign up for ArtSwa's kind of email blast so that you'll know as soon as those are kind of put on the books. I will also be sharing those out, so be prepared for over communication around all of this. But we just, our partners have worked so hard to make sure that this money was sort of set aside for this sector in this community, and we just want to make sure that we're supporting you all and taking full advantage of this, and making sure that you have an opportunity to apply for and hopefully receive these funds. So again, you'll probably be sick of hearing about it all over the next couple of weeks, but anything else that we can ask Michael and Shannon while we have them here? It sounds like there's a lot more to come, so hopefully this is just enough to get you sort of thinking and preparing and maybe applying for that number that you have. Yeah, I see Ariel has a question. Please feel free to unmute.
Hi, I'm sorry if I missed this at the beginning, but for the loss in income, I remember InspireWA was saying if you had an increase in like contributed income from grants, maybe specific to the pandemic, but earned income was non-existent. Is there a way for us to talk about those losses, even if total income went up?
Unfortunately, no. This grant is designed for folks who show loss from 2019 or 2020 if you opened your business then. So unfortunately, if you show an increase in income year over year, this grant is not designed for you.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. I'll pause for a quick second. Anybody else? Okay, well, thank you, Shannon and Michael, so very much, and Miguel as well, for being here and helping us get this conversation started, and for doing such good and important work in helping us all understand the process and the eligibility, and then I'm sure the work of administering this giant program. We're really, really grateful. Look out for an email from me. I will share some of those links that we dropped in the chat, right? Just where to go to sign up for the ArtSWA, email list and those sorts of things. And I'll share a link to this recording. Feel free to pass that on to colleagues at other organizations. And we will kind of work with ArtSWA on maybe some future, getting the word out about future workshops that they're going to do, so that you have a chance to really walk through the application and understand what the expectations are. So unless Michael and Shannon have any parting words, we'll say goodbye for now.
Awesome. Thanks, you guys.
Yeah, thank you all
Just
so
a note of
much.
gratitude. Thank you, Allison, and thank you everybody who tuned in. And as it's been echoing in the chat, thanks for everyone who really lobbied for this money.
Absolutely. All right, y'all, have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk soon. Bye.